Why is balancing exposure key to good motion blur in photos? Imagine capturing a fast-moving skateboarder or a flowing waterfall. You want to show motion beautifully without losing detail or brightness. That's where balancing exposure comes into play. When you want motion blur, you need to use a slower shutter speed. This keeps the camera sensor open longer, allowing moving objects to blur naturally over time. But here's the catch. The longer the shutter stays open, the more light enters the camera. If you don't adjust the other settings, your photo can turn out too bright or overexposed. That's why balancing exposure is so important. It helps you keep the right amount of light in the shot while still capturing the motion effect you want. In photography, exposure is controlled by three main settings: shutter speed, aperture, and ISO. The shutter speed is how long the sensor is exposed to light. For motion blur, you typically choose a shutter speed between 1/10 and 1/30th of a second. This range allows enough blur for movement but still keeps the subject recognizable. The aperture controls how much light enters through the lens. When using a slow shutter speed, you might need a smaller aperture, which has a higher f-number to prevent overexposure. If the light is low, you might open the aperture wider with a lower f-number to let in more light while still capturing the motion blur. ISO is how sensitive the camera sensor is to light. A lower ISO, like 100 or 200, produces clearer images with less grain. But in low light, you might need to increase ISO to get enough brightness. Higher ISO settings make the sensor more sensitive but can introduce noise or grain into the image. Balancing these three settings ensures your photo has the right brightness and sharpness. If you only slow down the shutter speed without adjusting aperture and ISO, the image can be overexposed, losing detail in bright areas. Conversely, if you make the aperture too small or ISO too low, the image might be too dark, hiding details in shadows. This balance is especially important in panning shots, where you want the moving subject to be sharp while the background is blurred. Proper exposure balance makes sure the subject is well lit and clear, and the motion blur looks natural and pleasing. Many photographers shoot in manual mode to control all three settings precisely. Others use shutter priority mode, where they set the shutter speed and let the camera adjust aperture and ISO automatically. It often takes some trial and error to find the perfect combination based on the lighting conditions, how fast the subject is moving, and the artistic look you want. In the end, balancing exposure is about managing the trade-off between capturing movement over time and keeping the overall image bright and detailed. When you get it right, your photos will show motion beautifully without sacrificing clarity or brightness. That's how you create compelling images that tell a story of movement and energy.